So just a little anecdote to set the stage. So I was having an argument with my coworkers because one of them came in and said, I don't know how people can suicide bomb. He's like, every religion, every culture, every society thinks it's evil. And I was saying, it's not like, and he's saying it's stupid and irrational. And so I said, it's not to them in terms of their worldview. It makes sense to them. And I was trying to explain, like, they don't hold like a materialistic Western bourgeoisie liberal worldview. So regardless of whether it's evil or not, it's a rational action in their minds. And he's like, no, I know Muslims and they don't like it. So therefore, it's because they're stupid. And I was trying to explain, no, they might be evil, but they just have a different worldview, and you have trouble understanding that. So then my coworker said, you support Islamic terrorism, and we don't want to understand how other people think. We just want them to agree with us. Which was kind of the takeaway. And I think that really, that's not only a very NPC thing, but I think that's a very big issue we have as the West. So let's try to get our thoughts together around this. A common complaint from some of the neo-reactionaries or some of the neo-pagans is that the universalism inherent to Christianity is what created liberalism and what led us to the current crisis, that led us to this belief in the perfectibility of man, that all people are the same, that all people have equal rights, etc., etc. Whereas some of the more kind of, I guess you could say, intelligent Christians will call it post-monotheism or post-Christian to refer to current state of affairs. So to just kind of summarize, so it's true that Christianity does have a universal morality. It does say that human beings have inherent worth. At the same time, though, it does not ignore the existence of evil. If you look at the Bible, there's all kinds of examples of evil cultures, evil societies, evil people that often have to be destroyed. Not everybody can be redeemed. We try to redeem everybody, but that also original sin. All men are flawed. All men are sinners. Christ came and died for us, but that doesn't make us incapable of sin. It helps us, but we're all capable of murder and theft and greed, etc. And that's an important part of Christianity. And that aspect of it leads a certain realism, a certain practicality to things. So we want to have this universal morality, but we also have to counterbalance this against the view that the world is a terrible fallen place in many ways. And I think this was a useful counterbalance. But what kind of happened was we lost that second half. We lost the whole that there's evil in the world, that there's bad people, that there's people who have completely different worldviews from us, and we have to act accordingly to that. And we need a certain amount of pragmatism in our actions. So we got rid of that, but we kept the first part. So it created what I call the belief that people are interchangeable, not equal. And I think this is a very important distinction because certain types of equality aren't necessarily bad. Like equality before the law is in many cases not a bad thing. You get to go, the judge has to say what you're accused of, they have to provide evidence. In most non-emergency cases, that's a very good thing. That politicians in non-emergencies are held accountable, like if they rob a convenience store, they go to jail the same as you. That is also, generally speaking, a good thing. Interchangeability means that there's a belief that there is no biological, mental, or sociological difference between different people, be they male or female. A man and a woman have the exact same physical and mental characteristics. And you see this, and this is kind of what affirmative action is based on. It's the idea that everybody is essentially the same, and it's only oppression that prevents everybody from having equal results. So, we've kept, I guess you could say, that part of Christianity, but we've lost the other part. We've also lost kind of the idea that God has different ministries for us, that we have different gifts and different crosses to bear. And we've maintained one half, but without the other half that makes it work. It's kind of like, I guess, if you have a train without the carriage. You have the locomotive and it's going full steam and there's nothing slowing it down, and going at the same steam would probably make it go faster. I don't know, that's probably not a good metaphor, but you get what I'm saying. It's or a sports car with the speed governors taken off so it can go as fast until the engine explodes. So that's kind of the state of affairs with regards to the world we live in. And because we have this universalist perspective that ignores evil, we are incapable of as a society, of perceiving that other people have different ideas. Not everybody aspires to a Western upper middle class liberal lifestyle. Not everyone aspires to, I don't know, spend their days drinking soy lattes, going to CrossFit, and making fun of people for, I don't know, for their primitive beliefs. And kind of another example of this, and this is something I've said a lot about the left, is the left is completely incapable of understanding our worldview. It's not that they disagree with us, because disagreement is something completely different. I don't care if they think I'm evil. They probably should, because in their worldview I am evil. It's that they believe that my views don't come from a coherent worldview. They don't come from well thought out ideas that just happen to be wrong or happen to be evil. They think it comes from ignorance. And if I just studied and you just read the books I read, then everything would just fall into place. It's like they'll say we love multiculturalism, we love diversity, but I've never met one of these people who knows anywhere near the amount about other cultures as I do. And I don't say this to brag, but despite being a supposed hater, I know way more about Chinese, Indian, Amerindian history than these people do. And they'll be like, celebrate diversity, celebrate different peoples, but they don't know anything about it. So it's if you actually question them on any of the things they say, they have very, very little knowledge, which ironically enough, if they knew more about these societies, they might have to abandon some of their interchangeability thesis. But if you notice, it's always, those people are mentally ill. Those people are stupid. They're homophobic. They have a psychological condition that makes them hate them. It's not because they have a rational issue with the destruction of the traditional family. It's not that they can show statistics on these kind of things. It's just that they're psychologically ill. And I don't think my opponents are psychologically ill, because I used to think like they do. I understand very well how, like, the draw of just saying everybody's equal, everything's nice, we can have a world with no hate, we have to stop people from saying bad things. I understand the appeal of that. I think it's naive, and I think it's foolish and dangerous, but I don't question why people hold it. It's something I understand. I don't question why communists really hold the views they do. My issue with them is kind of different, as most of them are Mercedes Marxists, but it's a different topic. But I get the appeal of it. It's this utopia, etc. I get like where libertarians are coming from. I think they have completely unrealistic ideas, but it does, if you look at it from their worldview, it does make sense. Same thing with Islamists. In their view, they believe that dying fighting the enemies of Allah means they will go to heaven. And that's something that a materialist can't understand, that to them eternal life is more important than temporal life. And if they truly believe that, okay, well, let's put it this way. You live maybe 100 years if you're super lucky, whereas eternity is eternity. And if a Muslim who's, I don't know, 20 says, look, I can maybe live another 60 years or so, or I can die for Allah and I will have eternal life. If you're looking at it in that perspective, the rational thing to do would be a suicide bomber. I'm not saying, well, it's obviously, I think it's evil and it's demonic, but my point is, if you accept the basis of their worldview, their actions make sense. They aren't irrational and they aren't contradictory. but they can't do it. There's this fundamental failure of imagination. There's this fundamental failure of, ironically enough, empathy and understanding diversity for what it is. And that's a large reason why we're in the hole we're in. And until we as a society, because we live in a society, are able to critically, or at least try to understand that not only are there opposing worldviews, but in a lot of cases, people are acting rationally within their frame of reference, I don't think there's really anything we can do to get out of the current crisis.